You need winners? Let the Football Insiders show you how to make money. General Manager Al DeMarco, a former sports reporter and contributor on Fox Sports, MSNBC, and Comcast Sports TV, brings over 25 years of handicapping experience to the table. CEO Steve Budin, the author of Bets, Drugs, and Rock and Roll, is the man responsible for creating the sports betting industry. Together, they are the Football Insiders, your number one source for football winners.
3 weeks ago, we had the underdogs go 9-5 against the spread. Then 2 weeks ago, the favorites bounced back big time, covering 10 of the 14 games. A mixed bag last week as the underdogs went 7-8-1. We had 3 of those puppies sneaking through the back door. It started on Thanksgiving Day when Washington came back for the late cover at Dallas. And then on Sunday, we had Carolina and Chicago sneaking through the back door as well, which proves it's all cyclical when it comes to NFL betting. Hi, everyone. Al DeMarco here along with Steve Budin, and this is your Countdown to Kickoff show. And we are the Football Insiders, and this is the only nationally televised show to break down all your top NFL games from a point spread perspective. And Steve, one of the teams that absolutely had no problem putting away their opponent a week ago, the Atlanta Falcons. They were a 4-point choice at home against Arizona. We were here on the show. We said the Falcons should have no problem at all with the Cardinals, and it was surprising because, listen, Atlanta, not a very good team when it comes to covering the number as a favorite, but they got the job done, taking advantage of an Arizona team that is yet to cover with Carson Palmer starting a quarterback on the highway. Now Atlanta at home once more, this time taking on a Kansas City team. Well, they are one of those teams that not only snuck through the back door, but broke through with the win at Denver on Sunday night, winning in overtime as a 3.5-point underdog. And here we find the Falcons laying a field goal to 3.5 points. Do we back the Falcons again? You were a big backer of Kansas City last week in Oakland. At Denver, so I'll let you start off with this one.
Well, I mean, very quietly, Al, the Atlanta Falcons are in first place in the NFC South, and for the most part, my feeling is bettors have ignored their run. I think that's why we see such a cheap price here at home at the Georgia Dome. I mean, these two quarterbacks, Al, they couldn't be more polar opposite. I mean, we're talking Clark Kent versus Superman. Chiefs roll with mild-mannered Alex Smith. He's the mantle of mediocrity. He doesn't take chances. He doesn't make mistakes. In fact, if the announcers didn't remind you he was playing 30 times a game, you'd probably never know it. And yes, you're right. The Chiefs edged out Denver in a clutch OT win last week. And how did Alex Smith do in the win? Typical performance. 222 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Al, he barely broke a sweat. For Atlanta, it's Superman, Matty Ice, having a career year. 3,500 plus yards passing, 26 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions. And Al, this Kansas City defense, I wouldn't consider them kryptonite. They gave up 463 total yards against Denver last week, who's far, far from an offensive machine. I mean, the Falcons, on the other hand, they are a machine. They showed it last week. They put up big numbers against a strong defense for the Arizona Cardinals, and they won that one 38-19. And that's the thing, Al. It's like when the 6'6", 400-pound guy gets transferred into your cell, the whole jail knows what's coming next. The Falcons, they score 32.5 points per game. It's first in the NFL. So how's Clark Kent going to deal with that? He can't. Give me Superman and the Falcons minus the cheap chalk at home.
Well, I have to agree with you. I'm going to go with Atlanta here as well, even though, once again, let me just quote you the numbers here. The guys, the Falcons are 4-12 against the number their last 16 games when laying points. As an underdog, they are money in the bank, going 9-2 their last 11 when catching points. They're also only 3-8 against the spread their last 11 at the Georgia Domes. But you hit on an important number as well. This Kansas City defense giving up 464 yards at Denver. Trevor Siemian moved the ball at will against the Kansas City defense. You know, the week prior, Tampa Bay, when they upset KC at Arrowhead, ran 74 plays and 442 yards for the Bucs. in Kansas City. So I think the Falcons will be able to move the ball. Plus, this is a typical letdown situation. Kansas City coming off the big road upset of the division rival. Now you're asking them to hit the road again, even though they've been a great play on the road. 4 straight road covers this season, and 9 of their last 11 on the highway they have covered. I think in this case, I'm going to side with the Falcons once more, even though, again, the technical trends go against them. And in this particular situation, naturally, I'm going to advise buying down the half point when that line is crossing 3 or 4 with Atlanta, and being wise and investing on the insurance. Next game, New Orleans. Guys, I told you last week here on the show, I love New Orleans, minus the points at home against the LA Rams. And I went ahead and used them as my best bet on Sunday's card, and you saw what happened. They showed no mercy, jumping out to the big lead against LA Rams. Of course, they gave up a lot of points, as the Saints naturally do because they play no defense. But then they managed to outscore LA 21-0 in the second half and ice the victory and seal the cover. They have now covered 7 of their last 8 games. Their playoff hopes keeping alive in the slimmest of margins. Now they're at home once more, a 5-point favorite against the Detroit Lions, who did what they do best on Thanksgiving. They found themselves trailing in the fourth quarter. They have trailed in the fourth quarter of every single game this season. And here's my best stat involving the Lions, who, courtesy of Sam Bradford's ill-advised interception, which they turned into the game-winning points on Thanksgiving, the straight-up winner in every single Detroit game this season has covered the spread. Steve, I'm looking at this number. Sooner or later, I keep saying to myself, the magic, the luck has to run out for the Lions and Matthew Stafford. And I say the luck runs out here, even though I acknowledge the fact that the Saints play no D.
I mean, we say it all the time to gamblers that follow our advice, Al. You can't be scared of the obvious. I mean, to me, this game is obviously screaming over the posted total. And let me tell you something. As great as New Orleans offense is, especially at home, the New Orleans defense is more leaky than Jenna Jameson in up-and-comers 11. I mean, even Ram rookie Jared Goff threw 3 touchdown passes in the first half last week against them. The Lions, Al, as a gambler, they're like the girlfriend experience. They like to keep it close all game long. And they'll probably do the same thing in this game, too. Saints have gone over the posted total 10 of the last 12 times at the Superdome. This one to me is a no-brainer. Let's bet the over and just call it a day.
Well, heck, they put 49 points on the Rams last week, and they had entered that game averaging a little over 31 points at home this season, and they outdid themselves by nearly 3 touchdowns. I can certainly see the over. This is a game, again, I like New Orleans. This is a team, by the way, this particular game, I wouldn't be afraid of perhaps using New Orleans in a teaser, because you're going to get in a 2-team, 6-point teaser, basically taking New Orleans and pick them at home. I can certainly see looking at the over in this particular contest, which is sitting at 53 points, taking the 6 points down and playing this one over as well. So I think there's a couple of options here. As I said, New Orleans or the over, or taking either one of those in a teaser, taking both of those numbers down and playing them accordingly. Your next game is going to be Oakland and Buffalo. The Raiders last week at home against Carolina, 3.5-point choice, and this is proof positive again why I've said the thing that has made me the most money, and perhaps more importantly saved me the most money in 20 plus years as a handicapper and as a gambler long before I got into this business, is buying the insurance, buying the half point either up or down depending on whether I'm on an underdog or a favorite. When that line crosses 3, 4, 7 or sometimes 10, well, the Oakland Raiders prove positive of that once more, because the Raiders are 3.5-point favorite. Hey, it looked great when they were at 24-7 against Carolina, but Derek Carr gets hurt. He comes out of the game a little bit. Raiders, another team, plays no defense. Carolina comes back. They take the lead. Eventually, Raiders win the game by 3 points. If you were wise enough to buy the insurance, you walked away with the push. But bottom line is this. Raiders walked away with another win. They keep on winning. They're at home. They're taking on a Buffalo team that won a second straight game. They played well on the road. I think because the Raiders, people still don't believe in this team, because they're not a very good home chalk, that this line is suppressed. I'm kind of surprised. I thought the Raiders would be a heavier price here.
Yeah, I mean, here's the problem with the Raiders, and I can understand it. They're a sexy team on the surface, Al. I mean, they're almost like that girl you meet at the club with the really tight spandex pants on. You can't wait to get her home. Then when you finally get her pants off, her whole lower body loses its form. And what you thought was a great ass, well, not so great anymore. Raiders, they've won 5 straight, and they're hot. I get it. But when those tight pants come off, Al, and they reveal what's really going on, this is a team that's only 3-3 against the spread as a favorite and 1-4 against the spread at home. And the Bills, as much as I hate to admit it, Al, you know how much I love Rex Ryan. Solid team for bettors, though, and for fans. 6-3 straight up and against the spread in the last 9. And more importantly, they're 4-1 as a dog in that stretch. So say what you want about Sexy Rexy. I hate him, but he's done a solid job in Buffalo. He deserves a ton of credit, and I guess Tyrod Taylor is Joe Namath compared to Mark Sanchez. That doesn't hurt, but it's much more than a quarterback in Buffalo. I think it's been a complete team effort. I'll take Buffalo here. We're going to go opposite each other in this one. I think they get the cover.
I still am going to go with the Oakland Raiders in this one. Heck, you know, they've won 5 straight and 8 of their last 9. I think that what kind of hurt the Raiders last week was the fact that they were playing on the short week, having played on Monday night in Mexico, coming back home. They got up comfortably. They were playing a quarterback or team quarterback by Cam Newton, who was always good for a comeback. Cam Newton, Tyrod Taylor. Enough said. I just don't think that the Bills have that type of comeback capability in them. And I think the key in this game is the Raiders are going to go back to the bread and butter, which worked for them in their previous home game 3 weeks ago when they ran for over 200-plus yards against the Denver Broncos. Use that big offensive line to open up the holes because this Buffalo team can be run on. Remember what the Miami Dolphins did in Miami with Jay Ajayi running for over 200 yards against this porous Buffalo front. And I think that's going to be the key, especially with Derek Carr playing with those dislocated fingers. I think instead of looking to pass the ball as much, they'll be more conservative, chew some time up off the clock, and I think the Raiders will go back, pound the ball on the ground, and I think they'll cover this game rather easily because I still don't believe the Bills are for real. Guys, we're going to take a quick break and then come back for the second half of this week's Countdown to Kickoff show. 4.5 years ago, I created the Charity Play of the Week program, and in that time, you and I have created a community of caregivers and have combined to contribute well over $350,000 to people in times of need. For those of you that have joined me, my thanks. For those of you that are not aware of the Charity Play of the Week program, let me just remind you, once a week, I give one of the top plays from one of the handicappers away here at the site for free, no strings attached. If it wins, then on a quid pro quo basis, I ask you to make a donation to a charity recipient that I choose on a weekly basis. I don't care if it's $1, $5, or $50. You don't have to put in the $250 that I do each time it wins, but I ask you to participate. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. Why? Because it creates positive karma. And you and I both know in this thing we do called gambling, we can never have enough positive karma. Again, I give you the play for free. And if it wins, I then ask you to make a contribution. It's done on the honor system, guys. And again, over the past 4.5 years, this community of caregivers has contributed well over $350,000. So, it's usually on Tuesday or Wednesday on the site. Check it out. You'll see one of the featured plays from one of the handicappers given away for free, no strings attached. It's the Charity Play of the Week program, and I hope you become a member of one of the most important things that you'll ever come across in gambling. Nobody's ever done it. I created it, and it's definitely something that will produce some positive karma in your life and benefit others in a time of need. Welcome back, everyone, to this week's edition of the Countdown to Kickoff show. We start off the second half with 2 teams that are coming off big wins. Tampa Bay continuing their surprising run. I understand you beat the Chicago Bears. You open some eyes when you go to Kansas City and you upset a Chiefs team that had won 17 of its previous 20 regular season contests. But when you come home and you dominate the Seattle Seahawks, well, that definitely catches a lot of folks by surprise. Then you got a San Diego Chargers team. Last time at home, 3 weeks ago, they get upset at home by the Miami Dolphins because Phillip Rivers throws 4 interceptions. They take the bye week, they come back, they go to Houston, they hand the Texans their first home loss of the season. Now, we have San Diego at home, pretty cheap chalk, taking on Tampa Bay. My way of thinking, the Bucs have momentum. They played well on the road this season. Jameis Winston is hot. I got to ride Tampa here if I was going to bet the game. I'm not a fan of it, but I can see why Tampa certainly deserves to get some respect as the road dog.
Well, a lot of people don't know that Tampa Bay is your home away from home, so I respect your opinion about Tampa. But let me just say that what's going on in Tampa, Al, is nothing short of a Twilight Zone episode. I mean, I just get the feeling that someone forgot to tell this Tampa Bay team that they're supposed to suck. 3 straight wins, 4-1 straight up on the road. I don't know. I mean, they're getting points in this one. They won in Atlanta. They won in Carolina and Kansas City. So remind me why they can't win in San Diego? They can. Of course they can. The Bucs defense, they were able to harass a much healthier Russell Wilson last week, caused 6 sacks, 2 interceptions. I'm with you, Al. I like Tampa Bay here. They got great strip clubs, and now they got a great football team. I'm going with the dog. It barks again.
Great strip clubs, great football. Yeah, that makes perfect sense in the analysis. I can see where that all comes out. Hey, listen, the one thing, though, that you have to be concerned with San Diego, when I look at that Chargers-Texans box score last week, the one line that concerns me the most, the Chargers won that game for 2 reasons. One, Brock Osweiler threw the 3 interceptions. So really, the Texans shot themselves in the foot. The other thing that really has me concerned is that the Chargers were 4 for 11 on 3rd downs and once again showed how undisciplined they are. 10 penalties for 78 yards. So, if the Texans don't have those 3 picks, if Brock Osweiler doesn't gift wrap that game for them, San Diego loses again. So that's why I think Tampa Bay all the more a live dog. Not a big fan of the game, but I think Bucs certainly deserving to get the points as the play. Next contest, Arizona minus the 2.5 at home against Washington. I think this is a sucker play. I think this is a trap game. I think this is a play designed for gamblers looking at this game going, oh my gosh, Arizona has to win because they lost again last week. It's a do or die situation for the Cardinals because they still believe it's 2015. It ain't. It's 2016. The Cardinals are what they are. To use a paraphrase to late Denny Green, the fact is they aren't that good. The way I look at the Washington Redskins, they left 6 points on the board at Dallas on Thanksgiving because of the 2 missed field goals. They moved the ball up and down the field against a good Dallas team. They coulda, shoulda, possibly would have won that game if they didn't miss the 2 field goals. They're the team that's better. They're the team, my way of thinking, is in the must-win situation. I don't think these 2 teams are equal. I think the Redskins are ascending. I think the Cardinals have been descending all season long.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Al, waiting around for this Arizona team to finally show up, it's like Jim Jones all over again. And it only leads to one thing in the end: mass voluntary suicide for gamblers. Trust me. Carson Palmer, officially part of the witness protection program in Arizona. He checked out, 11 interceptions on the season already. And when we get to this part of the year, Al, everything is being motivated by playoff implications. Redskins, they're looking for a wild card spot. But to bettors who've backed this Washington team all season long, they might as well be Super Bowl bound. 8 covers in the last 9 games for who? Kirk Cousins. Wow. Give me the Redskins here, Al. It's the law of momentum.
Hey, listen, Kirk Cousins has played his ass off.
Oh,
here
my
lately.
God.
I mean, you look at what he did against the Cowboys. 41 for 53, 449 yards, 3 touchdowns. And he was coming off that 275-yard, 3-touchdown performance in the 42-24 win against Green Bay the week prior. And the Redskins were doing that on the road on a short week of preparation. So now they have the extra time to prepare for this game. Cousins has played well. They had 515 total yards of offense in that game against Dallas. In Washington, you had pointed out one of the great ATS trends involving them. But if you go back to the last season, they have gone on a 12-3-1 roll in their last 16 regular season games. That is a money-making team in Vegas. And this Arizona team, when I look at that 38-19 loss at Atlanta, again, I look at that box score and the lines that make the most difference to me: 4 for 11 on 3rd downs, only 332 total yards against a very porous Falcons defense, and 8 penalties for 60 yards for a Cardinals team that's lost 2 straight and 3 out of 4. Yet Arizona is the 2.5-point favorite. Again, It's a trap. It's a sucker game. Washington is to play. They win the game outright. One of my favorite games on the board. Next game, I think, is more difficult here. Pittsburgh minus the 5.5 at home against the New York Giants. On the surface, we see a Giants team that has won 6 straight, 7 out of 8. Who have they beaten? Well, nobody really. I mean, they didn't look that impressive against Cleveland. Yes, the ground game has topped 100 yards 3 straight games. Again, big deal. Eli Manning is having a good season. Pittsburgh, of course, snapped its losing streak by taking advantage of the Browns on the road, taking advantage of an Indianapolis team on Thanksgiving night. I used the Steelers that night because why not use Pittsburgh? They were taking on the Colts minus Andrew Luck. Steelers, I still think, have a lot of defensive questions, but they've got Roethlisberger. They have Le'Veon Bell. The Giants have Eli Manning. They don't have a ground game, really. But this game, I think, is tricky. It could be a field goal game. It could be a Pittsburgh blowout by 10 or more. I really don't know which way to go in here. So, I always say, as a handicapper, there's no problem sometimes saying, I have no clue, skip the game, because there's better games on the board.
I agree. And Al, look, the Giants are getting a little bit better every week. They're alive and well in the wild card race, and they're running the ball better, and that's creating time for Eli Manning in the pocket. And when you give Eli Manning time, say what you want about him, he can be as good as any quarterback in the league. Big Ben, like Eli's, been there, done that. These are 2 veteran quarterbacks going head-to-head. I think they'll both have big games. I'm looking at the total here at just under 50 points, and I'm thinking Roethlisberger to Antonio Brown. I'm thinking Manning to Beckham, Cruz, and Shepard. You know it, Al. I'm thinking over the posted total here, but I do agree with what you said. Me and you both believe in the surround and pound system, where you look at all the games on the board and you only pick that one and focus on that one. That makes the odds better in the end for you.
Well, it's the square peg round hole theory. So many times gamblers will start focusing, and handicappers do it too. It's a trap. They start focusing on one game and they try to pick the side when sometimes you just can't find the side. And if there's more than one game on the board, why waste your time? Again, and I don't mean to harp on it, but one of those key factors, and I point this out all the time, the Giants this season have been one of the worst teams in the league on third downs.
Yep.
And why is that important? Well, if you can't extend drives, well, you're constantly turning the ball over to the other side. They were 4 for 13 on third down situations against the Cleveland Browns. Hell, in that game against the Cleveland Browns, they only had 296 total yards. They were also penalized 9 times for 100 yards. Teams that can't convert on third downs, teams that shoot themselves in the foot with all those penalties, that's the team that you have to always be leery of. I don't care if you're laying a lot of points or you're getting a lot of points, because those teams constantly keep points off the board because they're not capitalizing on good field position and scoring opportunities. Final game on the board, Seattle minus the points at home against Carolina. Now, this Seahawks team had been rolling. When you look at what the Seahawks had been doing, 245 total yards at Tampa. This is a team that had 438 yards at home against the Eagles the week prior. A team that had gone to New England and had 420 yards against the Patriots. A team that had scored 31, 31, and 26 points in the 3 prior games before losing 14-5 at Tampa. It sounded great if it was a baseball score involving the Rays in the middle of July, but, I don't know if it was fatigue. I don't know if it was just one of those games. What I do know is this. Seattle's bugaboo all season long has been that cheap offensive line they've assembled, and that offensive line afforded Russell Wilson absolutely no protection against the Bucs. The Carolina side, of course, played lousy for a half, came back, got the backdoor cover, really had a great shot at winning that game at Oakland. But that was pretty much the last hurrah for the Panthers. A season after, having such a great campaign, they're not playing for anything here.
I agree. I think you've hit on something here, Al. There's something wrong with both of these teams. Neither looks like the team they were last year. Last year, the Panthers owned the Seahawks. They beat them both times they played. But this year, neither team has hit its stride. I mean, watching this Carolina team play this year is like watching the 6th season of Law & Order over and over again. It just becomes boring, Al. It becomes predictable. When you analyze it, I mean, for me, I want to blame Cam Newton. But the problem really has been Cam Newton. It's been been defensive in nature. 25.5 points per game. That places their defense 24th overall. That's not going to get you back to the Super Bowl. But let me just make an announcement here to all gamblers. Look, the question here isn't whether or not Carolina can return to Super Bowl greatness. It's not even about whether Carolina can beat the Seahawks. The only question here is whether Carolina can cover the 6.5-point spread. And I think the answer to that question is yes. So give me Carolina to cover the spread.
Yeah, I kind of side with you there. I would probably take Carolina if you put me in a corner and put a gun to my head. I would probably take Carolina as well, even though Seattle has historically been a great play in the regular season from November going forward. Last 3 years, going 18-4 straight up, 16-6 against the spread in that stretch. But right now, I thought that one of the keys going into last week's games, one of the red flags that I mentioned on the show, was the fact that C.J. Prosise, the rookie out of Notre Dame, who had resuscitated the ground game with 2 strong performances, especially against the Patriots, suffered that shoulder injury against Philadelphia that was going to keep him on the shelf indefinitely. And even though they had gotten Thomas Rawls back against Philadelphia, he had an okay game against Tampa Bay. But, you know, Russell Wilson was their leading ball carrier against Tampa. And behind that offensive line, with Prosise out, I just worry. Now, the Carolina side doesn't have much defense. This game could be kind of exciting, could be more high-scoring as well. But if I had to go with the points, I would certainly take Carolina. But this is kind of like the Pittsburgh-New York game. Not a game that I would be interested in putting my money on. I think this is going to be a game, however, Steve, a lot of people are going to say, hey, I'm going to take Seattle on a 2-team teaser, and I'm going to take a -1 at home because they're not going to lose. Those same people probably saw the same thing last week and said to themselves, hey, I'll take Seattle at Pick'em at Tampa because they're not going to lose. How did that work out?
Exactly.
But anyway, guys, this is going to be the conclusion of this week's show. Remember, you can catch my daily video report each and every day on the website. For Steve Budin, I'm Al DeMarco, and until next week, I hope you make some money this week gambling with our picks. Good luck, everybody.